Leadership Fireside from Innovation to Integration. I would request Dr. Manish Gupta, Senior Director at Google DeepMind, Mr. Sudhir Kothari, Founder and CEO of MB Software Private Limited, and we have this conversation with Dr. Chiranjeev Bhattacharya, Mentor of the IT Entrepreneurs and Tech Startups National Committee, BCCI, and Chief Executive Officer and Director, Visatech Informatics Private Limited.
So I'll quickly introduce the two gentlemen with me and get into the job straight away. Dr. Manish Gupta, Senior Director at Google DeepMind, who's been leading teams conducting research in AI across India and Japan. Prior to that, he had led Videoken, a video technology startup, and the research centers for Xerox and IBM in India. Dr. Manish Gupta has multiple awards to his credit at IBM. He has about co-authored 75 papers, which has more than 8,000 citations. He is a PhD in computer science from University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, and a distinguished alumnus from IIT Delhi. Coming to Mr. Sudhir Kothari. Mr. Sudhir Kothari had visited us last year as well. Visionary and trailblazer in the field of digital transformation. Starting 40 years back with IT infrastructure and software licenses, grew a systems integration company, MB Software, and then transformed it radically into cloud computing many years back, to an extent that it got a very successful acquisition by Noventic. And then even after the acquisition, Mr. Kothari has been invited to run the India business of MB Software because of his extremely strong entrepreneurship skills and background, 40 years of consistent success. And today he is leading that company which focuses on AI analytics, not only cloud computing, which already was there. They are into SAP implementation as well as managed services. So with the permission of Manish ji, I will complete with Sudhir ji first, as he has a flight to catch. So Sudhir ji, thank you so much for being here like last year. So in this journey from innovation to integration, what do you think can be an effective role played by organizations like yours? Yours organization is today a 2,700 crore company. So what is the role that can be played by systems integrators or IT services or partner organizations like yours in this journey from innovation to integration?
CB, first of all, thank you for introducing me. Great question. I think innovation actually, creates opportunity, if you ask me, and integration basically creates business value. So if organization cannot be a leader, for example, unless with great ideas, they can be leaders only after implementing or executing those great ideas faster and better. So that's the way basically innovation to integration works. But what are the entire process of the journey of the integration is from innovation to integration is basically innovation creates products like AI, cloud, technology, and other things. But finally, it has to go through a process of experimentation, POC, your demo, and all that. And finally, it has to get implemented and scaled to help scale business. And that's how you actually get a business impact. So innovation to integration is a journey. And partners like us have been playing this role forever. So for 40 years to sustain in this competitive, cutting edge, constantly changing technologies, you have to play this role of helping customers, create value for the customer, having a business impact for the customer. So yes, business, if you ask me, a lot of time people say technology is the enabler for business. I'll say technology can be enabler for business unless and until the integration is done, it cannot be. So integration along with technology becomes the enabler of business. So I think this is one, and business technology only does not make, transform an organization. Basically, a business transformation uses technology and integration for that transformation. So this is the entire journey, which has to be actually, I'll say, it has to be followed, it has to be assessed and implemented.
Thank you so much, Sudhirji. Point is, there would be some showstoppers, I'm sure, in this journey. So what actually stops people midway, or what prevents a completion of this kind of a successful journey from innovation to integration, and anything that you may feel would help to prevent this kind of showstoppers?
So I think, in my experience, usually I've seen that any successful critical implementation needs a sponsorship of the top leadership of any organization. That's number one. Number two is the cultural of the organization. I view as the culture of the organization is ready to adopt, embrace changes. That's a very important key DNA which is required. A lot of time, people talk about innovation, and that innovation remains in the PowerPoint. It doesn't get pivoted into actually implementation in the business, and that's what our experiences are. We have seen so many POCs we do with the customers and all that, and they love it, but they fail to implement it in actual world. So a lot of time, this is culture. I'll say the sponsorship at the top, and when I say sponsorship, doesn't mean that okay, I'm ready to spend, but actually you have to give your time, because the top people understand the business very well, and they can actually help technology to get implemented. They can actually enable the technology team to actually implement or get the right kind of business outcome. So I think these are two things, and basically if you talk especially today from the AI world, a lot of time, are we ready with the data part, for example? Are we ready with the people? People have access to, example, today people have access to all kind of AI, but the real thing is actually you're putting AI into the right kind of business processes or not. That is where basically the success comes. But we have always seen that usually the failure happens because the sponsorship is not there, full sponsorship is not there, or people are doing half-hearted. The change is not, they are not ready to go for the change. These are most of or the basic technology is not ready. Basic data is not ready. For example, today, if anybody wants to do an AI, we have been talking about AI, in the previous thing. A lot of time people were talking about AI, but to be successful in AI, for example, people have to be ready with, data example. The data fragmentation has not to be there. I've also seen that a lot of time customers don't have integrated KPIs, for example, whether HR, finance, and business are actually integrated in the KPIs or not. And that actually really, then you start working in silos. If I'm trying to implement, supposing, for example, something in sales, the finance may not be interested because his thing is not getting covered. So within the organization, if the organization is not integrated, at times from the KPI perspective, we have seen that a lot of times, the critical, cutting edge technologies actually don't go in the organization so easily. And I've got statistics, for example, today we are talking about AI, okay? Now let's talk about AI. How many people in the world today, how many organizations in the world are today implementing AI? They're experimenting around 15 to 18% people are experimenting, okay? 80% are talking right now. Now they are experimenting. So it's going to take its own time. But then why? It's not going into mainstream because the basics are not ready. So I think a lot of time basics have to be ready before you basically make it happen.
Absolutely. Sudhirji, one last question for you.
Yes.
We have a number of first-time tech entrepreneurs here. So what would be your guidance, advice, tips for them to create sustainable enterprises like you have done for 40 years?
This is a favorite question of mine. I love to share my experience. Uh, I love that all the youngsters become successful, you know. So I think 4 or 5 things I want to touch. There are many things I can touch, but my experience is that know yourself first, you know. A lot of time people a lot of time I've seen entrepreneurs or early entrepreneurs, they give exaggerated value for themselves, you know. And I think that's a very key thing. What is your capability, skills? Are you capable to do or not? That's number one part, you must know. Second part is, of course, you should, you should be driven by your passion, perseverance and patience. These are the 3 things which are very important, because success don't come overnight. Are you ready to slog for 10 to 20 years? You know, cash does not come so easily. So that is one, number 2. Number 3, I think about are you responsible? You know, I think we were talking about, there were people who are investors. I think you have to be responsible to all your stakeholders. That's very important. People, customers, investors, bankers, partners. I think these are the first 5 people who come before you come. So a lot of times I've seen, you know, I've heard entrepreneurs saying that, you know, when मेरे को पैसा मिल गया तो, you know, I've become a, you know, valuation मेरा ये हो गया. But actually that valuation has no value. Valuation is only when you convert that into real legitimate cash, you know. And I think this is where probably a lot of time people have to understand that, you know, you have to run that business for your stakeholders. If you are there to actually add value to all your stakeholders, then go into entrepreneurship. But if you want to get a high that I am an entrepreneur and I want running a business, I want an investor and all that, that does not work. So I think these are 3-4 things. Of course, you know, discipline and everything comes into play. You know, processes, system, transparency, all those are all part of the game. But I think these are 3 very important aspects which I feel, you know, I've been very, cognizant about in my journey. Of course, in my time, we never had investors like that coming on the stage and saying, take the money. We had to struggle for money. Okay, we had to struggle for 1 lakh rupees to the business. We had to struggle to get into a banking system, banking loan system. But that taught us a lot, you know, the value of, you become responsible. So are you responsible for your people? Are you responsible for all your stakeholders? That's the most important part. And the rest, of course, you know, once you are, working hard and you're doing the right thing. And I think another thing very important, like a lot of times I want to share this because people want to say that how can I save money from my business and take that money out and invest in savings, okay? So I remember my wife used to tell me 35 years ago, you know, Sudhir, we are very insecure. How can we? I said, listen, either you save this or you stop the business, okay? You can't have 2. You have to take a chance. Now, either you plunge into entrepreneurship or you do into a job. There are 2 things. When you plunge into the entrepreneurship, then think about entrepreneurship, building the business. Don't think about savings. Those come much later. So I think these are some of the things which I probably, I never took out money from my company ever. And I think the last, I encashed it by selling my company. So that's all, some of the things which I wanted to share with you guys. I hope and wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sudhir. Delighted to have you here. Sincere gratitude. I will not hold you back while you are most welcome to be with us. Yeah. Sure. One sec. Thank you so much, Manish ji, for your patience, allowing us. So, we'll start with something like this. How do you see India's role in this AI evolution from one hub which adapts AI which is built elsewhere to a source of original research?
Yeah, so thanks. So that's a very important question. So first of all, there is absolutely no doubt that AI is a very transformative technology. It's impacting basically every industry, every aspect of how the world is run. So with India, with the challenges that we see in our country, there's absolutely no shortage of problems that we can solve using AI. And therefore, there is a lot of work happening in terms of applying AI, right, to solve various problems, be it health, be it learning, be it financial services, and so on. In all of these areas, you're seeing huge opportunities and a lot of activity by startups and other companies, right, to solve real problems using AI. But what is very important to also see is kind of the need to really develop those foundational capabilities in AI. Because one of the things to keep in mind is that today, if we go back, let's say, 7 or 8 years ago, typically to solve problems using AI, you would build specialized models for those specific problems. And those days are pretty much gone in the sense that today, most of these solutions that you have to various problems, they are being served by kind of these foundation models, these frontier models, which have very, very broad capabilities. So you have a single model, and we are talking about, again, moving towards this AGI, artificial general intelligence capability, where a single model has this capability to solve many of these problems much better than those specialized models, right? So we've seen the advent of models like GPT from OpenAI, Gemini from Google, Claude from Anthropic. These have very, very broad capabilities, right? Right from coding to kind of conversational capabilities to kind of being able to solve problems related to health, related to learning, and so on. So, so this becomes a really, really important strategic capability. And India being kind of such a large country, such a vast economy, I've been advocating that India must also develop its own capabilities in this very strategic space. And it's been heartening to see a lot of now work by both, of course, startups. And there is, sometimes people say, oh, there isn't enough talent in India. There's absolutely no shortage of talent in India. Often what we lack or what is in short supply is ambition, the guts to take on big challenges. So if you look at kind of, is there really foundational research and fundamental advances to AI being done out of India? Absolutely, yes. So I'll give some examples from my own team. My own team is viewed as within Google DeepMind, amongst the finest teams when it comes to making these models more efficient, right? Today, that's a huge concern because these models consume so much of energy, so much of hardware resources, and so on, that we have seen as generative AI models have caught on. We have seen so much of like people talking about now multiple trillions of dollars of hardware spending, and likewise commensurate spending on data center construction, power plants, and so on, because these models are so expensive to run. Our teams have developed methodologies like Matryoshka representation learning, which is used by pretty much every AI model, be it from Google, OpenAI, Anthropic, as well as capability which got extended to transformers, Matryoshka transformers, and a whole bunch of capabilities like Tandem, Treeformer, and so on, to make these models more efficient. So that's one example. Then, and in fact, the person who now co-leads within Google one of this long-term innovation area, he sits out of Bangalore, Prateek Jain. Likewise, in making these models understand many more languages and cultures, the blueprint that our team created in Bangalore to make these models understand Indian languages, that's the blueprint, the playbook, which has been applied to make Gemini understand many more languages, not just in India, but also in all parts of the world. So today, even that work on internationalization, what we call internationalization of Gemini, it is now co-led by Partha Talukdar, who's sitting in Bangalore, and he has teams in Zurich and Mountain View reporting to him. So we have plenty of examples where there is really cutting-edge work being done in Bangalore. And what we previously lacked was this ambition. So it's been nice to see now startups like Sarvam, which are developing these frontier models. Many other efforts like BharatGen out of IT Bombay, and certainly AI for Bharat for a long time, which in fact developed some of the foundational capabilities that led to the birth of Sarvam. So it's been heartening to see a lot of also that foundational work being done out of India, and I just feel we need to do a lot more.
Thank you so much. Manishji, very quickly, two more questions. Where is the exact potential to create true transformation using AI? Do you see any specific areas where AI can value add very strongly or maybe create economic benefits for the users?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So AI is actually going to transform every industry. One area which hasn't received as much attention in India, which it ought to, is the potential for AI to transform science, scientific discovery, right? So we saw one signal of that came from the work on AlphaFold 2, the AI model that would help you predict the structure of proteins, right? It fundamentally solved the protein folding problem, which had been a grand challenge. And this is an example of what Demis Hassabis refers to as root node problems. That once you solve these hard problems, you unlock solutions to many other downstream problems. So today there are over 3 million scientists across the world who are making use of these predictions from AlphaFold on protein structures for various purposes. The biggest area is drug discovery. So today, in the past, it used to take like 18 to 20 years to go from kind of the very first phase of drug discovery where you were identifying candidate molecules to actually landing a drug, right, in commercially. That time period is now getting compressed quite significantly. And in the past, you required kind of often like billions and billions of dollars of investment before you could make kind of this a reality. Today, a lot of those things are getting dramatically accelerated with the help of AI. So drug discovery is one area where I believe India already has this very well-developed generics pharmaceutical industry, but so far they've never owned kind of the design of drugs, right? Drugs were always designed by other companies and they would reverse engineer and come up with lower cost ways of basically manufacturing those drugs. But there is now a true opportunity to using the power of AI to design new drugs, likewise design new materials, new clean sources of energy. So these are, I think, the problems that ought to receive more attention.
Thank you so much. One last point, Manishji. Brilliant ideas always don't work in real life. In most cases or in a number of cases, there are gaps. So one point where you think how these gap can be bridged, what does industry needs to do in order to ensure that this gap can be bridged at least to an extent so that brilliant ideas can really get converted into real work?
Yeah, so often people kind of underestimate, right, the effort it takes to take an idea from kind of something that kind of works in a POC setting to something that actually solves the problem in the real world and to something that will then scale. So there are often, right, I would say significant failures that happen from the time of proving it in a lab setting to making it work in the real world for real customers. So that's one area where I think entrepreneurs really need to pay a lot of attention, and that requires a lot of focus. It requires a lot of kind of sweat. I mean, Einstein himself said, right? Sometimes that, whatever, what did he say? Something about it's 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. So often to make innovation work in the real world, there's a lot of attention to detail that's needed to make the idea ultimately work. Because sometimes, let's say, take the example of AI, you can have models working on very clean data, but do they stand the test of the real world where the data may not be very clean and so on? So how do you make really models that work on real world data? So that's one example. And then, of course, you have to then scale, because sometimes you make the mistake of tuning your whatever, customizing your solution too much to your initial first customer. Are you really solving the problem for a very unique customer, or are you solving in a manner that would be transferable to many, many customers? So those are key areas.
Thank you so much, Manish ji. Sincere gratitude for being here. Thank you so much.
I would request Dr. Bhattacharya to present a memento to Dr. Gupta.